Hello and welcome to our Battle of Britain documentary. In the summer and fall of 1940, German and British air forces battled in the skies over the United Kingdom through July and October of 1940, which was 12 weeks. This was a major turning point in the war, and also the largest sustained bombing campaign to that date. The long battle began after Germany's forces had conquered Belgium, the Netherlands, and northern France. Hitler looked over to the British Isles. He directed a force of over 1,200 fighters and 1,350 bombers to first attack the airfields, shipping, and even the towns. However, it became clear that the Luftwaffe, Germany's air force, was at a disadvantage. The air force was not prepared for the long-range battles and operations. Also, the tactics they would use usually were called lightning tactics or blitzkrieg. They were prepared to be used as air support for ground troops, so when the fighter aircraft were ordered to provide a close escort to German bomber formations, unfortunately for them, they were unable to defend themselves. In the Air Force they used the Messerschmitt fighters, and the dive bombers they used were called Junkers. While, on the other hand, in the Royal Air Force, known as the RAF, they used fighters called the Spitfires and the Hurricanes. Even though the technical differences between the aircraft were insignificant, and British anti-aircraft defenses and civil preparations were inadequate during that summer, throughout the battle the RAF had many advantages over the Luftwaffe, such as whenever British troops would crash land or be forced to eject from their aircraft, they could join back into the fighting due to the battles that took place over British territory. They also had the advantage of defending against German attacks from airfields that were wildly separated. This advantage was further increased by Britain's radar tracking system and guidance. Henceforth, the devastating effects that were to be wreaked by the Luftwaffe that were feared by so many were unable to happen. Let's take a quick break from that to look over some Spitfire facts. The role of the Spitfires were to be fighters. They were manufactured by Supermarine. They were originally designed by R.J. Mitchell, and their first flight took place on March 5th of 1936. There was a total of 20,351 built. There were a total of 4 types of Spitfires: A, B, C, and D wings. A wing was outfitted with 8 by 7.7 millimeter Browning machine guns. The B wing allowed 2 by 20 millimeter Hispano cannons along with 4 by 7.7 millimeter machine guns. The C wing provided a universal wing intended to speed production and allowed flexible armament options: 8 by 7.7 millimeter machine guns, 2 by 20 millimeter cannons, with 4 by 7.7 machine guns or 4 by 20 millimeter cannons. Additionally, 250-pound bombs were added. The final type, the D type, was generally fitted to reconnaissance models which lost their wing armament and gained additional internal fuel storages for increased range. The Spitfire could climb 2,666 feet per minute. It could climb to a maximum of 36,499 feet. The maximum speed of the Spitfire was 369 miles per hour. The maximum range was 1,135 miles. And the Spitfire was powered by one Rolls-Royce Merlin 45 liquid-cooled V-12 piston engines, creating 1,478 horsepower. Now let's go back to the documentary. The beginning of the end of the battles began on September 15th. The German forces had lost 56 of their aircraft, while the British had only lost 28 of their fighters. On the 17th, Hitler recognized that the efforts in the campaign were futile and postponed the invasion of Britain. Due to Britain's major victory, they were able to avoid a ground invasion from Germany and ultimately a German occupation. At the end of all the fighting, 1,733 German aircraft had been destroyed, while the RAFs had merely suffered a loss of 915 aircraft. Even though Britain had won the battles, it, however, did not stop Hitler's campaigns. He changed his Air Force tactics and went on to bomb larger cities such as Plymouth, Coventry, and London. Now, if you look at the video, you should be seeing some footage of dogfights or just the RAF's planes flying around and in their formations. Now, if you pay close attention, they seem to fly, there's very many of them, and they all have similar formations. They are sort of like V's, like as you would see with birds, and they always stay in formation. And by now, you should have seen a fighter tactic where they would go on sort of a bombing run of the enemy from above, and then right before they would hit the target with their own plane, because they would be firing on the way down in sort of a dive bomb formation. They would pull up right above them and then come back, sweep around for another run. Now, in this battle, the Germans, when they used Blitzkrieg, it had worked every time in the past. So they were caught severely off guard by the RAF's Air Force superiority. Due to this, they were just absolutely demolished. The dogfights did not last long, and Germany was made to look weak from this. They did not look like they had a strong or sufficient air force, but sadly that was soon re-established, that they had quite a powerful air force, which I will now refer to the Luftwaffe from now on. Even though they no longer used Blitzkrieg tactics, they were still able to wreak terror among other cities. In the end, London even was occupied, and that was not fun. But now you're going to be seeing some more pictures. Right here you see the Luftwaffe insignia. That seems to be a Messerschmitt fighter for the Luftwaffe Air Force. And upcoming, yep, there it is, a shot down Messerschmitt, which looks shot down and is shot down because it's crashed. Then there seems to be a few more fighters flying in V formation. Might not be V, but if you look there, here are some Junkers also in formation, straight line. And there's a Nazi swastika, which is also their symbol for the Nazi Party. There's the RAF symbol. And I think that's it for the pictures, and we'll be moving on to the timeline now. July 10th through August 12th, 1940, attacks on the Channel shipping. The German Luftwaffe attacked shipping convoys in the English Channel. Adolf Hitler issued Directive No. 16, calling for preparations to be made for Operation Sea Lion, the invasion of Britain. Hitler demanded that the British Air Force be eliminated to such an extent that it will be incapable of putting up any sustained opposition to the invading troops. Phase 2. 13th of August through 18th of August 1940. Attacks on airfields and radar stations. The Luftwaffe planned to destroy the aircraft of Fighter Command. Airfields and radar stations became the focus of German bombing. The raids destroyed valuable aircraft and damaged airfields, making it difficult for the RAF to operate. The 19th of August through the 6th of September 1940. The Luftwaffe continued to bomb towns, cities, and airfields across the south coast of England, the Midlands, and the northeast. British Prime Minister Winston Churchill acknowledged the enormous gratitude to British and Allied aircrew. Never in the field of human conflict has so much been owned by so many to so few. In retaliation of the bombing of London, the RAF launched their first bombing raid on Berlin, the 7th of September to the 31st of October 1940. Mass bombing raids were launched against London and continued against other major British cities. The Luftwaffe launched its heaviest bombing raids on London. Fighter Command successfully fought the attacking aircraft, resulting in heavy Luftwaffe losses. On September 17th, Hitler postponed the invasion of Britain, Operation Sea Lion. The German Luftwaffe were denied air superiority by the RAF, and the Battle of Britain ended.